Every single day, we read, watch, or hear about some heinous crime, making one wonder why the world could be such an evil place. In the morning, you can read about a brutal assault in the newspapers, and then tune into the nightly news and learn about another sinister crime. With the mass media latching on to nearly anything, we are loaded with this type of news, which apparently only gets worse by the day. What's even more frightening is the number of young lads that make the headlines for their heinous acts. A lot of kids are far from the innocent angels they may appear to be. Countless people around the world were left stunned by the fact that a pair of 10-year-old boys kidnapped and brutally killed a 3-year-old boy named Bulger back in 1993, which would make one wonder what could have possessed a couple of seemingly ordinary kids to engage in such savage acts. Try not to lose your cool as we look at some of the most heinous crimes ever perpetrated by juveniles. Here are the 20 most dangerous kids in the world. Welcome to another episode of Forever Green, and if you want to learn about the most savage crime carried out by a child that will leave you in shock, the following is the list of the most dangerous kids in the world right now. 20. Beaver Brothers. You've likely heard of the Fernandez brothers, who were shamed for their crimes against their parents back in the 1990s. However, you might not have heard of the Beaver brothers. These two young men came from an antisocial family that resided in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. 18-year-old Robert Beaver and his younger brother Michael was 16. The boys had two younger brothers who were 12 and 7, and three sisters who were 13, 5, and 2. They evidently wanted to do something so terrible that it would outdo the tragic Columbine incident, so they hatched a plan. On July 22, 2015, these two twisted individuals battered both of their parents, their two younger brothers, and their 5-year-old sister. The 13-year-old sister was only fortunate to survive the sick act. At least Robert and Michael didn't harm their 2-year-old sister. The good thing is that these monsters have been locked up for good. 19. Young Lady A. In 2004, a little girl from Japan, whose name and identity were undisclosed because of how young she was, tricked a fellow pupil into another classroom and started opening her throat and arms with a container cutter. After completing an act that can be likened to that of Jack the Ripper, the girl innocently returned to class with her garments covered entirely in blood. The murder was later dubbed the Sasebo slashing, which started banter over the period of criminal obligation in Japan, which had been brought down in 2000. 18. Eric Smith. Eric Smith was a middle school student in 1993 who was tired of being tormented at school and decided to take it out on a 4-year-old kid who was going to that day camp. Eric murdered the little boy by dropping a rock on his head. Eric was found guilty of second-degree murder in 1994 and will spend the rest of his life in jail. He has been refused parole 8 times with his family, nonetheless contradicting his discharge. 17. Keith Randulich. In a case of a chilling high school execution, Keith Randulich inquired from his mother as to whether he could buy a weapon to stop a relative that was abusing his kid sister. His mother dissuaded him from such thoughts and told him never to do such a thing. On a day, his mother was out and alone with his sister. Randulich grabbed a knife and executed his sister by cutting her throat. After his arrest, he vehemently claimed he had done it to protect her from further abuses. However, after no proof of abuse or manhandling was found, he was sentenced to 40 years in jail in 2011. 16. Jasmine Richardson. Jasmine was only 12 years old when she sought after ways of killing her family with her 23-year-old boyfriend. Eventually, they came up with the perfect plan. She and her maniac boyfriend went into her home in Medicine Hat, Canada in 2006 and killed her family and her 8-year-old sibling. The lover boy, Jeremy Steinke, had told his friends he thought he was a 300-year-old werewolf who devoured blood. Both were indicted on 3 counts of first-degree murder. However, Jasmine was condemned to the most extreme of 10 years. 15. John Venables and Robert Thompson. These two 10-year-olds tricked a little boy far from his family in 1993, executed him, and abandoned his disfigured body on an arrangement of prepared tracks. A surveillance camera spotted the boys as they calmly walked away from the crime scene. The young men were arrested and jailed until they turned 18. In 2010, however, John Venables was sent back to jail for damaging a piece of his permit. 14. Daniel Bartlam. on April 25th, initiated what he had thought was the perfect plan for him to get away with murder. The 14-year-old attacked his mother by striking her with a claw hammer. He then progressed to drench the house with gasoline, placed many papers on a naked fire, and left the house before it went up in flames. When asked about the incident, he explained to the police that an intruder had perpetrated the acts. Unfortunately for Daniel, the truth was uncovered, and he had no choice but to admit to his evil act. The scariest thing about the whole event is the lack of a sensible motive. The general belief was that Daniel simply wanted to see if he can get away with murder. He now has at least 16 years to work on a strategy. 13. Jake Evans. Who says that being under 18 isn't a blessing? The saying holds true for Jake Evans. You see, Jake Evans had a plan to kill his sister and mother he lived with, and then he was going to visit his grandparents' house and kill them along with his eldest sister. So, on October 12, 2012, he set his evil plan into motion when he shot his sister and mother. Luckily for his grandparents and eldest sister, Jake called 911 to confess his wrongdoings instead of venturing to his grandparents' house. He claimed to have hatched the plan after watching the Rob Zombie remake movie Halloween, in which a boy kills his family. He was handed a death sentence. Because he was a minor, he still got a hefty sentence of 45 years. 12. James Fairweather. If, by chance, you ever find yourself face to face with a boy named James Fairweather, then heed our warning. Run. Run far, run hard, and run fast. If you don't, then there is every chance that you will end up on the business end of a long and sharp weapon. If you have doubts that this 15-year-old killer is one of the most menacing kids in the world right now, then you should find out from one of his two victims. Of course, you can't, because they're dead. One of the victims was a 33-year-old man who was passed out drunk in a park in Essex, England. Joseph stabbed him for no reason at all. James then stabbed a 31-year-old woman in the eyes and appeared to be actively hunting another victim when police caught him. Naturally, he claims to be possessed by demons. He hears voices. He was sentenced to life in prison. The boy must have been definitely possessed. 11. Nehemiah Griego. It is prevalent for people who commit terrible crimes to do so for a good reason. Take 15-year-old Nehemiah Griego as an example. On January 19th, this young lad took a .22 caliber rifle, went into his parents' bedroom, and shot his mother as she slept. He also shot his younger brother twice when he came to see what the commotion was all about. Afterwards, the young psychopath went to the next room where his sisters, who were 2 and 5 years old, were cowering in the corner and shot them as well. He then proceeded to the gun cabinet and took out an AR-15 and waited for his father to return home from work. He gunned down his father as soon as he came through the door. Jarrell was sentenced as a juvenile, which means he will be free when he turns 21. 10. Kim Edwards and Lucas Markham. This is a story of two twisted lovebirds, 15-year-old Kim Edwards and Lucas Markham, her 15-year-old boyfriend, shocked the United Kingdom in 2016 when they were involved in a gruesome double murder. What was thought to have started as a joke escalated into the killing of Kim Edwards' 49-year-old mother and 13-year-old sister. As it seemed, little Kim wasn't getting the attention that she thought she deserved from her mother. The duo attacked their victims with a kitchen knife while they slept, and then finished them off by smothering them with pillows. After their wicked and cold killings, the pair apparently had an intimate moment, bathed together to clean the blood on their bodies, and then watched some Twilight movies. Lucas confessed that the only reason they killed Edwards' little sister was that he feared that she would call the cops. 9. Joseph McVay. January 2nd, 2011, police went up to a house near Big Prairie, Ohio, after they got a call from a concerned neighbor. On getting there, the police discovered the dead body of a 46-year-old who was face down on the floor of her living room. The cause of her death was made known by the gunshot wound she had to her head. But who would do such a thing? It turns out to be the woman's 10-year-old son, Joseph McVay. Well, there had to be an excellent reason for this. According to Joseph and his 15-year-old sister, who witnessed the whole incident, Joseph's mother had asked him to bring in some firewood. He was tired of being told what to do and didn't fetch the firewood. Instead, he went to his room, grabbed a .22 caliber rifle, and shot his mother in the head. 8. Will Cornick. Poor Mrs. Ann McGuire had dedicated her entire life to teaching kids. At the age of 61, she was just a few months away from retirement. In this sorrowful tale, the other character is Will Cornick, who seemed to be a normal kid superficially. But things aren't always as they appear. Beneath the innocent, seemingly normal kid look, the 15-year-old Will was harboring a massive grudge against his teacher. In front of his entire Spanish class on April 28, 2014, Will attacked his teacher, Anne McGuire, from behind using a knife as she leaned over another student's desk. She sustained fatal wounds. It was also reported that the demented student brought a bottle of whiskey to school to celebrate his callous crime. Will also admitted that he had planned to kill 2 other teachers that day. Luckily for those teachers, he was unable to fulfill his heinous fantasy. 7. Bobby Woods Jr. It can be said for sure that not all youths have the ability to think logically and clearly. This is especially true of 17-year-old Bobby Woods Jr. of Lufkin, Texas. Bobby lived with his girlfriend and the 3-year-old son of his girlfriend's brother, Mason Cutler. Bobby's girlfriend was pregnant, and this posed a bit of a problem in his mind. He felt that their house wasn't big enough to accommodate another child. His way of solving it? Bobby took young Mason to a pond behind their house, pushed the young child into the water, and walked away as the wailing child drowned. A genuinely heartless act and a terrible solution. Bobby admitted that he planned the whole thing. It also discovered that his girlfriend knew what happened, but she was deemed not fit to stand trial. Before we move on, here's a quick challenge for you. If you can leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button, and turn on the notifications in less than 5 seconds, you will have 10 years of amazing luck. Hurry up and try it. It actually works. 6. Jarrell Milton. 30-year-old Charles Fisher and 31-year-old Jamil Ray were drug dealers. On June 29, 2015, they made plans to sell some marijuana. An uncomplicated transaction was supposed to go down at a park in Omaha, Nebraska, but the deal turned out to be far from it. As they got to Miller Park, the duo was ambushed by 3 assailants. Ray was killed following the bullets he took to the head and neck, while Fisher was luckily shot in the shoulder and survived. But we hear about these things all the time. What makes this any different? Well, the real shocker is the fact that the 3 assailants were young boys. 12-year-old Jarrell Milton and his 17-year-old brother, along with a 15-year-old friend, had planned to rob the 2 dealers for an easy score. You could sleep easy knowing that he will be back on the streets soon, judging by the fact that Jarrell is a minor. 5. Daquan Stribling, Quandarus Burris, and Jace West. When most stable and normal young teenagers get together, they usually perform activities that don't involve a senseless homicide. However, that wasn't the case in October of 2017, when 3 young boys in Baldwin, Mississippi were bored and wanted to do something fun. Instead of going to the bowling alley, perhaps playing video games, or just harmlessly hanging out, they decided to kill a 70-year-old heartlessly. Henry Adams Jr. was found outside of his house on October 23rd. Quindris Burris and Daquan Stribling were just 13 years old at the time, while Jace West was 14. The killer trio has been charged with capital murder. They would have to stand trial as adults, but they won't face the death penalty because of their ages. While the motive for this senseless killing is suspected to be robbery, police have yet to confirm it publicly. 4. William Schultz. William Schultz is extremely dangerous and deranged. There's honestly no other way to put it. It seems that 18-year-old William believed that the world was coming to an end, and he wanted to tick off a few things on his bucket list. What's the top of his list? Well, William wanted to find out what it was like to kill another human being. On April 26, 2015, Schultz approached a house, cut the power, and entered. He sneaked upstairs where 19-year-old Jordan Almgren was sleeping and stabbed the child to death. But why target Jordan? William reasoned that Jordan was weak and little. He'll have at least 25 years to rethink his life's goals as he sits in prison waiting for parole. 3. Jordan Brown. Jordan Brown had a severe jealous streak, which will surely make you lose sleep. His crime was definitely horrific, but he was also recently released, which is just as scary. Jordan Brown is now 6'2" and 18 years old, but he was locked up as a plump 11-year-old with severe jealousy issues. Well, Jordan didn't like the idea of his father's fiancée being 8.5 months pregnant. He had the impression that a newborn would be given all of the attention. So, he came up with a plan. He used the 20-gauge shotgun that his dad had given him for Christmas in 2011 to take care of this problem by shooting 26-year-old Kenzie Hulk while she slept. The unborn baby was also killed as a result. We can only hope that he is rehabilitated. 2. Amarjeet Sada. This is a case of a boy who scared India with his callous acts. Serial killers are nothing new. They have walked the earth for ages and will continue to. In one way or another, Amarjeet Sada wasn't much different from your run-of-the-mill psychopath who gets his kicks from killing little kids. In 2007, he reportedly bashed his 6-month-old cousin's head in with a brick, or possibly a rock. He then duplicated his cruel and heartless deed on his baby sister, and then again on his neighbor's kid. There are a couple of alarming facts about this case. Firstly, some neighbors were aware that Sada was responsible for the first 2 deaths, but they considered it a family matter and did not report it, meaning that his 3rd victim could have been saved if they had spoken up earlier. Perhaps the most horrifying fact is that Sada was just 8 years old when he committed these crimes in 2006. It's now time for today's subscriber pick. Today's photo was sent to us by a subscriber wondering about the story behind this picture. If you come across a mysterious photo online and want us to look into it, just send it over, and we may even feature it in a future video. Now, we looked into this picture and did some digging. We found that the collage comprises 2 children dressed up in their Halloween costumes, while the other is a rage-filled kid whose story we'll share with you as our number 1 most dangerous kid in the world. Before we reveal number 1, be sure to check out other amazing videos on our channel, and give us a like if you enjoyed this video so far. Tell us in comments which one of these you like the most and why. Christian Fernandez. In 2011, 12-year-old Christian Fernandez was left alone with his 2-year-old sibling while his mother was away. Christian repeatedly slammed the defenseless kid's head into a bookshelf in a fit of anger, making him the youngest murder suspect in Duval County's history. When he noticed that his younger half-brother was no longer responsive, he took the dying boy to his bed. After confirmations, it was discovered that Christian had also slaughtered a little cat previously and that he had experienced hate-filled adolescence, including wrong manhandle and witnessing his father's suicide. He was given a request for homicide and exasperated battery. Christian was jailed until he was 19 years old. We can only hope he had learned to control his murderous rage. And that's it for the most dangerous kids in the world. We're sure some of the stories we've shared must have left you disgusted or probably angered. Do you think each of these kids got the appropriate sentence? If you were to judge any of the cases, what would you have done differently? Be sure to let us know in the comments below. And if you like this video, you should definitely check out other exciting videos on our channel.